Hello, I wanted to talk to you all about Chapter 7, Creating High Quality Environments. Namely, the thing that I wanted to discuss with you are the forms that are provided for you in this chapter. Let's start on page 178, the Emergency Contact Information Form. This is essentially your medical power of attorney and should accompany you and the child to the emergency room. That's what this form is for. It doesn't say that's what it's for, but that's exactly what it's for. So often when you call parents during the day for whatever reason, they may not be available to take your call. And don't think that just because it's an emergency that they may be able to take your call then, because they aren't psychic. How could they possibly know that? In any instance, you need to be able to care for their child in the parent's absence. That's why you have a form that authorizes you with this medical power of attorney. I like the fact that this particular one requires notarization, so in terms of the legalities of it, I think that people would be less apt to question, is this a valid form? Are you able to require medical attention for this child? I mean, I'm hoping that you're not going to run into that problem. But just be advised that you have this additional part of the form that talks about the physician to be called in an emergency. I don't think for a second that if you call a physician that you're going to have any medical information released over the phone to you, but this would be good information to pass on to medical personnel. Same thing applies to the dentist. You could pass this on to medical personnel caring for the child in case of an emergency. So the next form that I wanted to talk to you about is on page 182. It's an inventory checklist for planning program security. And this is probably my favorite checklist in the whole chapter. It's just excellent. I think it hits on some very important points. Obtain a copy of the building floor plan or blueprint. Prepare a list of employees by name. Attach a photograph. Same thing with the children. Know where the shutoff valves are located and how to turn them off. I tell you from personal experience, I wish I would have known where this was one day, because I had a major flood in my infant room in a new building. And furthermore, the people that came to fix it, they kept asking me where the cutoff valves were, and I didn't know. But had I thought of this, then maybe I would have been better prepared. I certainly would have been better prepared, but having your blueprints and being able to provide them to personnel working on your building is very important, and knowing where those shutoff valves are, that's important as well. Post your evacuation plans in each classroom and review them periodically with teachers. So that's talking about your fire evacuation plan. If you have 2 doors in a classroom, one leading outside and one for the entrance to the classroom, you want to have a fire evacuation plan posted by both of those doors. If you have more doors leading into the classroom or out of the classroom, have a plan by each door. That's important. And review your plans. That's important as well. You need to have a primary route and a secondary route mapped out. And if you have questions about that, I think that would be a great item to call your local fire department on. This is what I'm thinking in terms of evacuation. Does that make sense to you? And get them on board with that. It's really important. Let's see. Making copies of parent authorization forms. That's, the form that we were just talking about on the previous page. Compiling a list of emergency personnel and their phone numbers. So this is a great checklist, and I think that would be a relevant one to use in your program. I wanted to talk to you about allergy listings as well. So I would maintain a separate allergy list. And how often do you update that list? Well, whenever you get a new child with an allergy is when you're going to update that list. Whenever you have a child that transitions from one classroom to the next, you're going to update that list because now they're in a new classroom. And let's say you have a child that comes into the program that's newly enrolled, you're going to update your allergy list then if they have an allergy, or you have a child that leaves the program, then you're going to need to update your allergy list at that time. Your allergy list should be posted in each classroom in the same manner. For instance, you're going to have it in the cupboard in the specific area of the classroom, and everyone needs to know that. And it should be on the inside of the cupboard for privacy reasons. And if it's a food allergy, then you can post that even on the table where children are sitting with the parents' permission, of course. So let's move on to the next checklist. It talks about how to conduct a fire drill. And the part that I want to discuss with you is how this says designate several adults to assemble children and lead them out of the building. Assign extra adults, such as cooking or clerical staff, to assist with the evacuation of younger children or those needing extra help. So the kitchen staff can always be assigned to a specific age group, such as the infants, who may need more assistance with getting the babies out of the building in the fire evacuation cribs. Now, these same kitchen staff may be assisting, depending on the time of day that you're having the fire drill. If you have gone to half of your staff to child ratio, then the kitchen staff may be assisting those 2-year-old classrooms where you have children that are very hard to wake up. And it could be different depending on the time of day. Typically, your clerical staff, they will be leading the charge with respect to calling the fire department and with conducting the counts. So I don't know that I would necessarily assign them to do anything else other than that, but the kitchen staff can certainly assist with where you feel that they would be needed the most. The admin staff, the managers, we would be the sweepers, and we would divide up the building depending on when the fire drill was. We would divide up the building. That would determine how much of the building we would sweep, how many of the management staff were present. And we would determine that as the fire department arrived and we saw them coming. I didn't like to have a lot of advance notification because I think it's a more authentic drill for your teachers if they don't know when it's going to happen. But certainly do it every month. It's important that you do it because then everyone knows what their role is. Looking at the checklist on page 185, teacher safety checklist, indoor and outdoor spaces. This is a great checklist too, but I would caution you to read through this and think about, is this really something that I need to assess on a daily basis, or is this something that is more appropriate on a monthly checklist? Because for your checklist to be effective, all of the criteria on it needs to be relevant for a daily checklist. I'll give you an example. A minimum of 35 to 40 square feet of usable space is available per child. Well, I don't know that you would need to assess that on a daily basis. Maybe you want to do that monthly. Another one, carpets and draperies are fire retardant. I don't know that you need to do that on a daily basis. Tables and chairs are child size and sturdy. You could do that monthly. Smoke detectors are located in appropriate places and in working order. I don't know that you're necessarily going to check your smoke detectors every day. You should definitely check them monthly. Go through your facility with the broom and check the light and make sure that it's working. And then on an annual basis, you're going to change the batteries in your smoke detectors and in your carbon monoxide detectors. So the bulk of this list are things that you're going to do on a daily basis. And what I would recommend that you add is checking the temperatures of the refrigeration units in your kitchen and your freezers. That should be part of your opening checklist for your building every day. This continues over onto page 186, your outdoor areas. In reading through these, I think all of those you could do on a daily basis. play areas are located away from heavy traffic. I don't think that's something that you would assess on a daily basis, but I think everything from that point forward is something that you could assess on a daily basis. Now, where we live, in terms of outdoor play, weather can affect us. It may just be too hot to go outside sometimes. And if you're still going to go outside, you would limit the amount of time that you're outside. That would be an appropriate solution because children need to have that outdoor play time. I've worked in climates where it's really cold and we have snow. And while that may not be relevant to a lot of you here, you may work elsewhere, you may move, I don't know. But one of the things that we had to take into consideration is that whenever we had ice on the playground, we couldn't put salt down on the playground because that was toxic to children. So what my assistant director and I would do prior to opening the playground is that we would go outside with an ice pick and chop up the ice. She had a hammer, I had the ice pick, and we would chop it up so there would be smaller chunks of ice, and it wasn't necessarily, well, it definitely wasn't as hazardous as having a solid sheet of ice on the playground. And we went outside when the temperature was 14 degrees. So still going outside every day, making sure that parents had appropriate clothes for the children to put on with the snow boots, the snow suits, and everything that they needed for the elements, but we would adjust the amount of time that we were outside, much like being here. On the days when we have those ridiculous heat indexes, we're not going to stay outside as long, certainly, but we do want to provide children with that opportunity to be outside. What else did I want to talk to you about? Oh, this chart on page 190, examples of common poisonous vegetation. This doesn't mean a lot to me looking at it because I don't know what these things look like. So I'm going to look for a document for you for your reference that has pictures of things for you to be aware of while on the playground that are poisonous and you don't want your children to come into contact with. Well, I think that's it for chapter 7. I really wanted you to pay close attention to these checklists that the author has provided and consider, looking at the checklist that you're currently using and perhaps adapting some of the material in the text could be beneficial to you in your program. I'm not sure. And if you are currently not using any checklists, I think these are great to refer to and adapt them to how you want to use them in your facility. Lastly, I want to circle back to licensure of early childhood programs. This chapter discusses being accredited through NIAC, or the National Association for the Education of Young Children. It also discusses being licensed, and licensing is different from state to state. But one quality indicator, certainly, it's the staff. It's the teacher qualifications in your program. Research has indicated that there's a positive correlation between a teacher's education preparation and the ability to provide high-quality early childhood education. We can't do it without well-qualified teachers. We can't necessarily afford to hire all degreed individuals, and for that reason, we have people in our programs that are 18 years of age, have a high school education, and can pass a background check and read, speak, and write English. But the key with those staff is that we follow up with them. We have a high quality training program, and we provide a mentor to that staff person, and we don't set them up for failure by letting them teach on their own without any kind of supervision. So we can still succeed with teachers like that, certainly, but we cannot just leave them unattended to fail. I like this book that I acquired at the home show, strangely enough, from the Office of Early Learning. It is a quality checklist for parents to consider when they are looking at programs that they may want to place their child in. And the first criteria on this checklist is, do children look happy, involved in activities, and well cared for? That was of huge importance to me as a Child Development Center director in walking through my program, was looking at those children. Are they happy? Are they engaged? Are the teachers being respectful of them with their interactions? And I love it that this is the first thing that's listed on a quality checklist for programs. I think it's very important. So that wraps up my talk to you on Chapter 7. I'll be checking back in with you on Chapter 8. Thanks, and have a great day.